Tate Chronicles now transmitting.
Welcome to the Tate Chronicles on Healthcare Now Radio. And now, here's your host, Jim Tate.
Good day, citizens of the free world, from border to border, coast to coast, and to all the ships at sea. I bring you a warm welcome. This is your correspondent, Jim Tate, and thank you for tuning into the Tate Chronicles. Join me as we cut through the fog that exists at the leading edge of healthcare, technology, and development. My guest today is Anatoly Podstrelov, the global head of IT and security for EDETEK. EDETEK provides comprehensive and business and technical solutions to advance the science of medicine. Anatoly, thanks for joining me on this episode of the Tate Chronicles.
Thank you so much, Jim, and good morning to you.
Good morning. Our topic today, and really interested in having this conversation with you, Anatoly, is really around advanced data monitoring and really keeping one step ahead of clinical data hackers. It's in the news every day. I've been wanting to talk with you ever since I read an article of yours that was on the Health IT Answers website. I want to break our conversation into two parts. First, kind of focus on why clinical and health data security is becoming more complex, and then maybe we'll take on what are some of the best practices to ensure data security. First, why is health data security becoming more complex?
Well, I can say it's becoming more complex technically. Maybe
Yes.
And the technology didn't change much in the last, I would say the electronic security technology didn't become more complex in the last 15 years from
Right.
the like deep down security point of view. I think it's becoming more relevant. And it's becoming more relevant because we have a lot of our data sits on someone else's machines. We no
Correct.
longer manage paper
Yes.
files. We have large companies sharing vast amounts of data. And they have to be shareable, they have to be accessible, even according to government regulations. And that's why it's becoming way more relevant and way more interesting.
Yeah. I've been around Anatoly long enough to have seen the shift from essentially paper-based clinical data to the digitalization of healthcare data. And so all of a sudden, with all these electronic health records and I guess telehealth and wearable devices, we've gone from all this analog data out there to digital data that needs to be protected. Probably a lot harder to protect digital data because it's in electronic format, just sitting out there somewhere.
I agree 100%. It's more of the concept of portability.
Mm-hmm.
And the data basically having legs. Digital data, paper file is something you have in your hands, right? You can make copies, right? Then there's a clean desk policy, right? All the regulations around keeping paper in check and archives in check. Digital data, my assumption as a practitioner, once you typed, posted, sent something,
Mm-hmm.
when it's on the internet, you can consider it public knowledge. I mean, this is a sad reality
Yes.
of how things actually work. It's not probably the whole concept of security. It's the sort of a hygiene, data security, digital hygiene, which becomes very important for all the parties involved in this process, from data processing companies to healthcare providers, pharmaceutical, down to individuals, because there are a lot of steps individuals can take personally in order to protect or stop the spread of their data.
One thing, Anatoly, I'm aware of is, 5 or 6 years ago, we heard the phrase big data a lot. Don't hear it as much anymore, probably because it's just assumed that everybody's trying to get as much data as possible into one big cloud so it can be analyzed and sliced and diced and trends. AI can look at data, trying to predict trends. And so there are a lot of benefits to this big data, but big data also is a bigger target for hackers, no doubt about that. And so it seems like almost on a daily basis in the media we read about a ransomware attack on a hospital or an insurance company, health insurance company, things like that. It is that really increasing significantly, the attacks, the number of attacks?
Well, let's look at this from two different angles. So,
Yeah.
first one, big data, right? Big
Right.
data is a technical term. It just
Mhm.
means a lot of. It's exactly what it means. A lot of
Mhm.
data.
Mhm.
If back in old days, if you made a copy of patient record and you didn't put it through a shredder and put it in basically in a waste basket and then it goes out to a dumpster or recycle company, right? Somebody can pick it up and get exactly what's on the paper, that particular patient health records information, private information, things like that.
Mhm.
Now, if you made that same mistake with the USB flash drive or CD-ROM or an encrypted laptop, that immediately makes that exposure bigger. So big data, big problems, big, basically big exposure, right? In terms of healthcare, if anyone who is a security practitioner would look at the security as a trade, and hacking is also it's a business. At the moment, short of hacking into bank accounts and financial records, like direct money transfers, right, or access to crypto wallets, for example, financial data is the most lucrative product on the market because there's only so much you can do with social security and phone numbers and emails.
Mhm.
But there are a lot of things, a lot of fraud which can be used commercially in a dark way by exposing insurance, the health insurance fraud, medical data records, medication, you name it. It's just a very good slice of data, which happened to be massive, somewhat easily accessible, and there's a very cynical and very simple commercial interest in doing both like a secondary use or resale of that data, or just pure like ransomware, like extraction for reputational damage or for operational stability.
That's probably what we hear about more in the news is ransomware, as opposed to folks going after demographic, Social Security information like that, which can be used for, I guess, other financial crimes, identity theft, things like that. Um, uh, it seems that with ransomware attacks, most of the victims, or it's not uncommon for the victims to pay the ransom. It seems like a pretty easy crime, actually. It's easier than robbing a bank, and safer than robbing a bank. You have any thoughts on that? Is that yeah?
Yes. So let's define who the victim is. So if you're
Yes.
talking about, so as far as being in the US or in the EU and being owner of the data, like the patients, subjects, data subjects, so patients themselves, right? They usually covered by data processor cyber insurance, right? So you've probably seen a lot of letters saying, "Oh, here's your like 1 year theft protection, here's your 1 year identity protection. That's a result of the class action, data leak, yada yada yada." So as an individual, you covered. It doesn't mean your data is not out there. It doesn't mean it's not going to get exposed. It just means that you're somewhat protected, and you may expect some noise. Or in rare cases, some real like financial damage to an individual, which is likely to be covered. It's just noisy because you can always trace it back to a given data. If you're a technology company, right, healthcare company, technology company who deals with that data, your damages will be most likely covered by your cyber insurance. I mean, I'm assuming the businesses in that area, have basic protection. But ransomware will come in two different flavors. First one is operational disruptions. Go back for months, look at the United Healthcare Payment Provider subsidiary. They got all their systems encrypted, and it just affected the company because they were not able to get the infrastructure back or processing back. That's a very bad sign because it means company had no business continuity, no contingency planning, right? Aside from losing a couple of days worth of processing and data leak, they had operational issues, like they didn't invest into operational stability. Now, the second part is extortion, right? Data extortion, right? Reputational damage. We have your data. We're going to sell it unless you give us X amount of money. Then we're going to securely wipe it, and it's a done deal. Now, to me, if it's out, it's out. I don't believe these guys will securely wipe it, right? They will get the money. What happens next? Nobody knows. But as a practitioner, you should assume that your data is going to sit out there. Why would they delete it? So it's a business, and it's a type of ransomware is like the ransom itself is a loaded topic. Is it reputational? Is it processing? Is it financial damage? Is it competition? You never know. It is wild. It is wild. It's jungle out there. It really is. So just a very good slice of data to work on. And typically, if you look at protection, right, you have government, military, critical infrastructure, right? Those are like the forefront because it has to be protected. No questions. Then you're looking at financial. That would be like a next level. Trading, banks, financial system. And then you go to some other types of data. Personal data, healthcare. Healthcare is it's a very good target right now. It is, because there are tons of data sharing, and the practices can get as good or as bad as each given company gets. And we can see a lot of this in the news.
One of the things that anybody who's involved in healthcare technology is unfortunately extremely aware of is the hack that occurred at Change Healthcare. Because there's the real advantage, of course, of interconnected systems, all these complex networks that are involved with billing and reimbursement. And in the case of Change Healthcare, the hackers went for Change Healthcare, brought them down, and not only affected Change Healthcare, but every provider who was, submitting claims to Change Healthcare could not submit claims. So, there was this massive collateral damage financially, workflows, everything else. To me, that is the biggest event that I'm aware of where, again, as I use the word collateral, all this collateral damage happened to provider entities that were not directly the target of the hack. What are your thoughts about the Change Healthcare hack?
Well, that was the one I was referring to.
Yes.
But let's peel the onion a bit. Let's look at the real impact. So the real impact was actually patients, right? If you're humans, because the claims, everything, claims, procedures, service, right? It comes at, we have people who are not well, right? They have to get help.
Yes.
If the provider cannot work on claims or financial or pay the employees, right, to do the work effectively, right, it affects the patient in the first place. So to me, and if I take it now, if I go one level deeper, it's a whole business continuity contingency planning, right? Like, are you sure you only want to get affiliated with a single payment provider or single claims provider? If you are, if you're starting a business, if you're running a business, and then I know you're within the same healthcare system, right? You really have to think, decide how good your business is going to be. Don't take anything, right? Don't take it for granted just because it's part of United, for example, in this case, right? Or it's a preferred provider for any major network, not to pick on United Healthcare, right? Think of what's your contingency plan. Is there maybe paper trail? Can you fax these claims? Can you step away from the electronic system you're using? Can you do you have a contingency for your own business to have secondary means of getting reimbursements, right? Is there maybe request financial aid, right? Like go ask for a loan from United to say, I want to keep my operations, right? So it's all comes into old school, non-digital age, traditional contingency planning.
That it really showed the vulnerability of the interconnectedness. It absolutely did. Before we move on, let me just say to our audience, if you just join us, I'm Jim Tate, and in this episode of the Tate Chronicles, I'm speaking with Anatoly Podstrelov of EDETEK. You know, just tell me a little bit about, I know we're talking really Security Day, and your company is involved with a vast array of products and services. Just let me know a little bit about the company. Who are your customers?
So we cater to, I mean, I have some mileage with traditional healthcare as well as finance and HR tech. So very touchy, kind of sensitive areas from data perspective. We cater in our EDETEK caters to life sciences companies. So we cater to pharmaceutical companies, large and small, from really like the phase zero startups all the way to some of the top pharmas, like probably top 10 pharmas of the world. We have a number of products and number of services. And if I look at our landscape, each service probably makes more sense for a company in a given stage. So we have something which is budget friendly to get the like a phase zero study up and running quickly. And then we have services to progress that study as it gets more complex through different phases, or M&A activities, or maybe partnerships with the large pharma. We have all the data. We have all the data and all the systems to take that study all the way to submission. In some cases, we have quite a few successful FDA submissions. We worked on thousands at this point of different studies across different therapeutic areas. But again, we cater to life science companies in all phases of the life cycle.
And globally, sounds like.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's all. I mean, globally. So everything is global. Internet is global, right? If you can access it on the internet, it's global. Now, that doesn't make us a global company. I mean, the company itself is global.
Yes.
And on top of that, we're well aware of data privacy security regulations in every single part of the world, like from New Zealand and Australia, like all the way to US. So we global not because we have global footprint, follow the sun support models, things like that, global accessibility. But we think we global because we cater to global regulations. We're well aware of data privacy and pharma regulations in like each major area of the world, and that's what makes us very different maybe from another company of our size or footprint.
Let's move on to the second part of the conversation I want to have with you, Anatoly, and that is best practices to ensure data security. And I imagine the issues here not only technical, but on a human scale, because I know if there's not proper education, somebody working in a large organization can receive a spearfish email. They click on the link. That is as successful a way to hack a system as some kind of brute force attack. So let's talk about some of the best practices, maybe first from the technical standpoint.
Sure. So let's take the example you just brought up, the spear phishing email, right?
Yes.
Well, I cannot speak technical, but I cannot talk technical without talking about humans, right?
Sure.
The whole, if you're looking at technology aspect, any technology aspect, security or data processing or stability, just about it, the very first thing which should come to your mind is that humans are not reliable. They're just not. Like humans are humans. They creative beings. Free spirits, right? The humans are here to invent, to create something new, to do the work machines cannot do, because there are non-standard situations in everyone's day, right? People have to go and process it using the skills they experience. So, but when it comes to repetitive tasks, humans are just not reliable. So if you take spear phishing email, number one, you have to make sure that no matter what happens, right, this email doesn't get to the user inbox. There are a number of tools, number of filters, a number of different layers of protection to make sure people will never get that email, right? Now, if they get the email, when they click on that link, there another layer of protection. They should not be like the link might not come up, right? The browser might give you a warning, right? You might have some other technical means of protection saying don't click on that link. This is not your company. It's all technical, and it's fairly easy to implement, and it's not that expensive these days. So that checks the layer. So after humans, that's the first layer. Now, after that, it's really goes into what's called what we call a blast radius. Well, you clicked on the link. Somebody is asking for the username and the password. Well, that's not enough these days. You have to have multi-factor. Like username and password should not be enough to log in into any system, or maybe to log in into any system from the outside. You have to be on the company network. A lot of people oversee it, but in the multi-factor, which people think it's a code on your phone, right, or the pop-up. No, not only. It may be your physical location. You might have to be in the office locally. You might have to be plugged into company encrypted Wi-Fi, right? You might have to be in deep underground in Virginia and in a vault, right? And that data is only accessible from there. So that's the technical implementation. Okay, what happens if someone gets in? It's called the layer. It's called the layer concept of a layered defense, and that's what you have to do as a technical practitioner. From there, it's all humans. Training, security awareness, drills, simulation, spear phishing simulation, HR. Like if you really care about what you're doing, about your security, the guidelines out there, the run books and frameworks are out there. It's the matter of looking at this as a complex matter, and you have to look at this from a lot of angles. But right now, I think this human angle is probably the most important one. So that's really best practice. The technical aspects are typical, they generic. They, encryption, best practice, passwords, changes, access controls, partitioning of access. Those are out there. But you cannot look at this in isolation. It's like all of them have to come together. Otherwise, somebody is going to find that single vector, that single hole you left unprotected. And again, I think the humans will make easily 50% of it.
We only have about 3 or 4 minutes, Anatoly. And let me ask you this. I'm kind of curious about often when a organization is hacked, and we, downstream people whose data is on there, we get information that the organization detected unauthorized users or actions in their system. What technology is being used to track to see if an unauthorized user has entered the system in some way? How was that done?
Okay, so number one, detection, right?
Right.
If you should, there's a company called CrowdStrike. They had that motto: it should be detected in 60 seconds, remediated in 10, and closed in 60 minutes, right? So if you're detecting three days after, data's gone. So technology, there are a set of technologies. Typically, that what happens, that people aggregate signals, as we know, they're called signals, from variety of systems: your computer, your network, your log authentication system, or your applications. So the data is getting aggregated in near real time. It's supposed to be in real time, and based on that, there are rules and metrics. It's called SIEM, the Security Event Information Management. There are triggers, and those triggers will either alert people to SOC security operation centers, or they might actually automatically invoke runbooks saying, okay, if Jim clicked on the link and we went to a website which is not part of our safe website, we might want to shut down his machine immediately, or we might want to network contain his machine, right? So there are a lot of automations. There are a vast number of technologies, about, I would say, 15 to 20 major vendors out there. It's a matter of choice.
One thing kind of fascinating but kind of scary is, of course, we know that CrowdStrike was involved in downstream hacking because malware was put into CrowdStrike, and then when all the people who or many of the entities using CrowdStrike, when they upgraded, that brought the malware in.
Well,
yeah, go ahead. Maybe I have it wrong.
no, it was self-inflicted. I don't think that. I think CrowdStrike, the very first thing they stated, being security vendor, and I have no reason not to believe them, that it was an internal issue. So it's technically it's a denial of service attack, right? But in denial of service, the vector, in this case, vector was the CrowdStrike's own technology. They had a malformed or badly formatted or badly tested code sensor. It's a code, call it a code, application code, which, because of CrowdStrike's nature as a very, very nice and very deep going security tool, that was the nature to integrate tightly with the operating system. Like why it happened, why testing failed, why they didn't have a better backout procedure, why Windows engineered in a certain way. Those are different questions. Like the malware at the CrowdStrike ingestion level would be end of the company immediately. No, for them it was an outage, and a bad one. The one would, like some of the hacker teams out there will be proud of, but it was internal.
Well, I think we can kind of agree, Anatoly, that the threat level and the level of vulnerability continues to increase for the foreseen future.
Yeah, it's again, in security speak, it's called surface. The surface getting bigger. Yeah, the surface getting bigger means there's more surface to attack, right? So it's attack surface, right? Of course.
Yeah. Before we say goodbye, I want to make sure that our listeners can find out more information about EDETEK. Probably the best place, I guess, to go is maybe the website, correct?
Yes, it's www.edetek.com. You can send us an email. It's info@edetek.com, and I appreciate the opportunity for this session, for this podcast, to speak, to maybe educate anyone a bit. Just to mention that I've been practicing this for about 30-something years. And there are plenty of information on the internet, plenty of websites which will not charge you for information. Really good overviews can be found anywhere. LinkedIn, actually, the chatbots, the AI stuff, the ChatGPT and other AI services. There are some really good resources or good conversations you can have on all things security. Don't be shy. There's no shortage for being ready. You know what? The way I saw it, like, was post 9/11. There was a very good marketing motto by Ready.gov, the government site for preparedness. They said, "You can be afraid, or you can be ready." So that's absolutely my motto, right? Like, don't take anything for granted. Don't be surprised. Be ready.
Well, that's a good place to end our conversation. To our audience, thanks for joining me on this episode of the Tate Chronicles. I offer a special salute to my guest today, Anatoly Podstrelov. Anatoly, thanks for coming aboard today.
Thank you so much.
You can find more information on this show's program page at healthcarenowradio.com. That's healthcarenowradio.com. Until we meet again, here's wishing you smooth sailing and safe harbors.
Tate Chronicles transmission ending now.